Welcome to the Always On podcast. My name is Duncan MacPherson. I'm your host. And on this podcast, we are always striving to enable our audience, which are high caliber fee-for-service professionals, to keep and always be working on their business and on themselves personally and professionally. And to that end, today I had a great conversation helping financial professionals understand how AI can impact your business from a client-facing perspective and also from an enterprise perspective behind the curtain. And to do that, I had a great conversation with Kevin Bishopp, who is the VP at First Trust. He's a performance coach, a very high in demand speaker, and an all-around great guy who knows his way around hockey, which is also an important quality. If you like this podcast, please like and share and tell your colleagues. And if you have any ideas for topics down the road, just let us know. Thanks for listening. Very excited about this conversation because we are going to take a deep dive and discuss some of the ways AI can impact your financial services practice, both from a client-facing perspective, but also from an enterprise perspective, back of the curtain in terms of how you run your enterprise. And to help us identify these actionable items, I'm joined by my good friend, Kevin Bishopp, a performance coach with a sterling reputation, an in-demand speaker on practice management with a very specific emphasis on capacity and efficiency, an essential, indispensable member of the practice management team at First Trust. Kevin, thanks very much for being here. I know you're busy. I really appreciate you being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's great to be back. I think this is the third time you've invited me into the Always On podcast, which I will agree with you is a stellar name, given the mission of what you and your team are doing with the financial professionals and teams that you're working with.
Yes, thanks for that. Seemed a little forced, but no, I'm just kidding. Yes, you are a returning guest, and it says a lot when we invite a guest back. Maybe it says, let's give him one more chance.
Possibly. Yes, true.
I think the best part
could be. Go ahead.
I think the best part about Kevin Bishopp, from my perspective, is that you're also a hockey fan. Do they still say in Seattle, release the Kraken?
That is the phrase. Yes. Release the Kraken.
It's one of my favorite phrases with many dimensions to that. I remember hearing it for the first time watching the movie Clash of the Titans back in 1980, and then many times since then. Who's your favorite player?
Oh, that's a tough one. I love Jordan Eberle. His story, that as a team, this is their fourth season. They went the first 3 years without naming a captain, and they got smart in between year 3 and year 4, and they put the C on his sweater because he's an incredible leader, great player, skilled. And if you look at him from a physical stature standpoint, he is by no means an intimidating force. He just is crafty, smart, veteran player, which is what I think of a lot of times when I look at successful advisors that we work with. It's not that they're the biggest. It's not that they have the most polish, but it's the ones who are strategic in how they move, how they play, quote unquote, their game. And to connect the dot, they're the ones that are looking at AI. And you want to talk about releasing the Kraken on an industry, right? Artificial intelligence and the capabilities to enhance service delivery, efficiency, client experience. We are on the very, very front end of what's going to be some incredible developments in our industry. So I'm hopeful that I didn't steal your thunder with the analogy, but I'm excited about space. I'm excited about these next 35, 40 minutes with you.
I see what you did there. Very nice tie-ins. And let's not get off hockey just yet, because first of all, Jordan Eberle, near and dear as a Canadian, obviously maple syrup, bacon, and hockey, among other things. But I think you and I have discussed before, one of the greatest goals in world junior hockey history was scored by Jordan Eberle as a teenager. My wife actually has a Seattle Kraken jersey. She loves the colors, Tiffany blue, but it is a Jordan Eberle jersey. yeah, just a very fast, wily veteran with incredible skills. And he actually was very nice to my son many years ago when he got to meet him. So yeah. What's your favorite stat in hockey? Of all the statistics and metrics, what's your favorite stat?
What's my favorite statistic?
Or measurement tool in terms
Yeah.
of performance?
Yeah. I think plus minus is a fantastic measure, right? If you just want to cut to the chase, like, hey, when you're on the ice, are you scoring goals or are you giving up goals?
Yeah.
Right. Because those guys, they can only control what's happening when they're on the ice, right? You could lose a game, but a guy could come off the ice and he might be +3. Well, he did his job, or the defensive pair, they did their job if they're +3 when they're on the ice. So what's your favorite hockey stat?
It was a trick question because that is the stat preferred by the most enlightened hockey fans because yes, you get to play both sides, the full rink. And yeah, there are a lot of goal scorers out there that are liabilities defensively, but yes, the best hockey players have the best plus minus stats in my opinion. So yes, well done. Okay, Kevin, I want to do two things. First of all, Occam's razor. The simplest solution is probably the best solution. So let's simplify AI from a productivity and efficiency perspective, but let's also create some engagement, create some buy-in, because Occam's broom basically means that somebody is open to receiving information that is contrary to their fixed beliefs. They don't brush it or sweep it away. AI is, in our view, my view anyway, and I'm sure it's yours too, is non-optional in terms of adoption. And I know compliance has to catch up, but even that's coming. Let's talk about this. If you think, you and I both been in the space long enough, the progression of the financial professional, it was first of all a book of business, transactional, brokerage, living and dying by the performance sword, products, pricing, performance, all of that. Then it shifted to a book of busyness. Advisors started wearing more hats, depth and breadth, complexity, shift to advisory, fee worthiness. They've got to run a business. They've got to be rainmakers, all of these different things. Now we've landed in this place where it's an actual business where they professionalize and standardize everything they do, not just from a technical ability perspective, but also in terms of practice management and relationship management. Again, I'll just keep putting you on the spot. What is one of the best things AI can do for a financial professional in your perspective, your opinion?
So I couldn't agree more with the progression, right? What you just described is what the innovators are doing, the ones that are excelling and creating contrast between them and the average team, the average firm. If you were to inventory the AI that is accessible and available to financial advisors today, I would say that hands down, the number one tool in terms of productivity and putting more sand in the hourglass is the tools that you allow into your strategy meetings for the purposes of documentation, summaries, meeting notes, tasks, and follow-ups. I've had at least 6 conversations in the last 5 days with different teams. It's Jump AI, it's Zox AI, Otter, Firefly, Read. There's a number of different tools. And what the teams are telling me is it's taking 90% of the admin work out of a strategy meeting. Right now, you still have to send the agenda in advance and you've got a follow-up email. There's going to be points of interaction. You've got to do some prep for that strategy meeting. But the ability for AI to tune in, summarize, organize, assign tasks, it's incredibly powerful. And I was talking to a team in Los Angeles, and it's a team that's adding a series of younger service advisors in satellite locations. And this one team put a guy in Dallas, put a guy in Tennessee, put a gal in Chicago, and they're taking referrals from the custodians, Schwab and Fidelity. And these are all one man or one woman shops. And I said, guys, if you do nothing else, get them trained up on your process and how to articulate value and how to take in the referral, but get Jump, get Otter in there so that these one-man service advisors can then take 90% of the admin around a strategy meeting off their plate. It gives back time to the advisor, right? Frees them up in the meeting to pay attention, to be more tuned in to facial expressions, body language, to actively listen in those strategy meetings. And it speeds up the follow-up for the team. So if you had to put me in a corner and say, pick one capability for AI, that would be the one where I think you get the most productivity that can in turn enhance the client experience in a variety of ways.
Okay. Brilliant. Could not agree more. You think about the law of resonance that says that the value of an interaction, the value of communication, the value of a strategy meeting begins at the end of the meeting. So how do they feel as they're leaving? After they shut off the Zoom, after they're getting in their car, what are they thinking a day or two or a week later? That perfect recall, not relying on memory, having that sidecar solution to capture not just the technical, but again, like you said, that bedside manner interaction. I was speaking with Chris Jepson yesterday, and he reminded me of, we were talking about how the world's gotten so transactional. He reminded me of that scenario of when you're sitting in the room at the doctor's office, sitting on the table, and door opens. Doctor reaches behind the door, grabs the clipboard, and you realize that it's at that moment that doctor is starting to think about you. Right there.
Yeah.
Not before, just there. And then they stop thinking about you as they put the clipboard back on the door and walk out. It's a transactional exchange, and that's so common in various professional service encounters. What you just described, especially with the ramp up, the execution, and the follow-up, gives a sense of belonging and comfort to a client that they're in good hands. I want to come back to the CRM integration and functionality in a second, but you mentioned putting more sand in the hourglass, and I know you're familiar with this analogy too, but I'll just share or remind for our listeners. There's a great video of a professor with a jar on the desk, and he fills it with golf balls, and he asks the students, "Is it full?" And they say yes. And he says no. He then pours in sand. "Now is it full?" "Yes." "No." Then he pours in water. It just has a capacity to take more. And I know capacity is near and dear to your heart. And for some advisors, the goal is to see how big we can get. For other advisors, it's to see how small we can stay. Either way, the goal is to not dilute the client experience and keep raising the bar. And so there are many forms of artificial intelligence that can help in that respect, both in terms of plateau avoidance from a growth perspective, but also that loyalty fatigue and just the familiarity of the relationship starting to fade. So let's talk a little bit about that. How can relationships get rejuvenated with AI, both in terms of existing relationships with clients, strategic partners? Any thoughts or insights on that?
Yeah. So if you carry that analogy forward with the professor and the rocks, the sand, the water, most people who go through that demonstration, when asked what's the moral of the story, they say, you can always fit more in. And that's not the moral of the story. The moral of the story is if you don't get the big rocks in first, it's a massive process to get them in because you've got to dig in, scrape out, move, and then get those rocks in. So the learning is, how do you operate a business in such a way where you make certain that the big rocks are in place? And I would say that your level of research, due diligence, interest, adoption of AI should be one of those big rocks that you figure out how to get that in place because it has so many capabilities, so many ways to enhance your business. So when it comes to deepening relationships, there's some very, very cool AI out there. There's a tool called Crystal Knows. We're all familiar with disc profiling, right? Crystal Knows is something you invite to a conversation with another individual on a Zoom or on a phone call, and it will give you real-time insight and dissect this person's disc profile to help you better engage. Like, unbelievable what can be done. When you think of client experience, right? We have a lot of teams who say, I don't really know what my clients are interested in or what they're passionate about, or I need to do more interesting client events. Just pop open Chat GPT, Perplexity, Claude, choose your AI of choice, and tell it what you want to accomplish. Hey, we are a financial advisory firm. We focus mainly on high net worth individuals in these industries. We've got our core deliverables well under control. We're looking for ways to enhance and deepen client relationships through small, intimate client events. And it's going to regurgitate back to you an interesting list. Like you and I have talked many times about AI getting you to the red zone, not getting you over the goal line, right? There are just so many ways that you can use AI to kickstart or to jumpstart any form of creative process. Write something, you're going to put together an event, you want to enhance a process, right? It just gets you right to that red zone to a point where you're now just tweaking on the margins, editing, and right, that time that you save with AI, I would encourage everybody to say, with the time that we're saving in doing these activities, let's all commit to taking whatever comes out of AI and using that extra bandwidth to formulate and create a process to do this thing on a more consistent basis. The more and more I talk to teams in this environment that we have with all the complexity, the best continue to fall in love with process. They've realized that's their quote unquote savior, right? We're going to create capacity by developing and refining processes. And many of the advisors who we have that initial conversation with, their positioning or their bias towards process at first is limiting. Hey, so you want to box me in, you want to contain, you want to control the message. And it feels like we're infringing on their kind of the ground that they've stood on or infringing on their turf. And it's uncomfortable. But without fail, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 12 weeks later, they come back and they say, man, this is incredibly liberating, right? And it's liberating because we're removing ambiguity. We as human beings, we do not like uncertainty. Right? So when we remove the ambiguity of who's a fit for the business, when we remove the ambiguity of solutions that we put in place, when we remove the ambiguity of our client experience model and we don't have to make it up on the fly, their minds are liberated and they get more creative, right? And they spend more time thinking about clients as opposed to the frantic getting ready for this meeting or that meeting, being behind the 8 ball, on the hamster wheel, chasing your tail, whatever analogies you want to use.
I just want to come back to the moral of the story regarding the jar, which is a great insight. And maybe I'm forcing the analogy a little bit, but it also reminds the lead advisor to focus on the big rocks, and any proteges or others can use the same practice and process, just with different people, maybe smaller rocks, without there being dilutions. Everybody stays in their lane. So that's very interesting. I do want to talk about HR implications in a moment, but opportunity leakage as a business scales up can be addressed as well. Because again, we only have 24 hours in the day, so you can't get more time, but we can get more from the day using AI. And I think what I'd like to touch on here, because actually, let's zoom out a little bit, because let's just remember something. AI is machine learning. Like, it's actually assembling information. And it's actually, and I'm sure you've noticed, I noticed this with myself. The more I use Chat GPT and even Gemini on a Google search, it's learning my style. It's learning my nuances. My cadence, my tone, everything. It's actually assembling better information for me the more I use it.
Yeah. And there's tools that, if you like that capability, there's even more advanced tools like Jasper AI, for example. That's a tool, a writing aid, but you could point Jasper at your website or an existing block of white papers, commentary, and you say, hey, soak that up, take on the tone. This is how we write. This is how we want to present ourselves. This is what our website looks like. And this is how we position. And then it uses that as it creates new copy for you. The refinements that are required at the end become fewer, which again, what does that give you back? It gives you back time. And I love to go back with advisors who are capacity constrained, right? You get to that plateau and you level out and you're caught in the crossfire of your own success. We talked about that phrase when we were prepping for this, right? You got things coming at you from every angle. You only have three levers that you can pull. If you want to create capacity, free up some margin to be able to be more nimble, to avoid the opportunity leakage, you either have to work with fewer clients, grow your team, or find ways to get more efficient. Right? Now, just think about where AI lands in there. It could certainly cut across all of those, but it squarely lands in the efficiency category, right? We're going to use the horsepower of machine learning, AI, algorithmic, all the whistles and bells to create some capacity, which means, hey, maybe we don't have to disengage some clients. I know you and I, we still encourage that growing down all the time, but it's another tool in the toolbox.
Yeah.
And one of the frustrations that I'm experiencing from advisors is they're saying, hey, these AI tools are great, but everything is standalone. Right? There's no level of integration across our tech platform. And there's a very simple reason for that. It's because our industry, and depending upon which channel you're in, we might put banks and insurance companies on one end, we might put RIAs on the other in terms of innovation, in terms of tech, et cetera. Our industry, we are perpetual laggards when it comes to technology implementation because of the complexity, because of the compliance, because of the regulations.
True.
So AI is going to, even with the limitations, it's still incredibly powerful, but that power is going to be amplified as you figure out and you find AI that can then integrate with your CRM, that can get into your planning tool, that can integrate with your account aggregation, right? It's going to start to create a tie-in to all of these different systems. I don't know if you're familiar with APIs, Duncan, but an API is a way that computer programs can go out and query another program for information. And if you set up all the APIs correctly wiring, that's how they do the account integration and they pass data back and forth. We need that same level, that kind of spider web integration of AI into a tech stack in order to magnify the power and the output of it. And that's just going to take time. Right? With that said, there's still tremendous gains that you can make with the AI that you have available to you today.
Okay, so to just round that out, yeah, I agree with that as well. The art and science dynamic and the bricks and mortar dynamic. I mean, back to the jar, the rocks, the sand, the water, there's a neat outcome from all of that. I do want to talk about integration in a moment as well, especially regarding AR and also being process driven. But I'd like everybody to make a mental note of this very important word when it comes to client acquisition. And the word is predisposition. So predisposition basically is just a form of preparation. It's getting a prospective client prepared for an initial meeting. It's getting the advisor prepared for the initial meeting. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because of another solution. And by the way, Kevin, I think what we should do is create a top 10 list of the actual items, the solutions, and why they're relevant to help advisors navigate through this. But here's another one, is Perplexity AI. Give you an idea. I know an advisor that has started to narrowcast into a very specific sector within the construction trade. He got invited to speak at a conference and he wanted to get his head around what he was going to say. Go on Perplexity and just ask it questions about the association, the organization, the members, and Perplexity goes out and scrapes websites, social media posts, and starts to assemble this sort of composite. And then, of course, like many issues, the core is 2 or 3 questions deep. Then he can ask Perplexity, show us the alignment between what that audience wants and the value I bring. The output is staggering. Another advisor gets introduced to a pretty substantial head of an accounting firm. So imagine this. A client of a financial professional says to his accountant, I'm going to insist that you have a conversation with my advisor. And then he just explains through advocacy all the reasons why. The accountant says, yeah, okay, let's do that. To prepare to become predisposed, the advisor goes on Perplexity and asks it questions about this accounting firm, about the lead at the accounting firm, and then asks for issues around alignment. It just creates this dynamic where you don't have to go in pressing, trying to be interesting. You're going in being interested. You've already got some insights about where the bridge and the alignment of interest is. It makes for a more productive, meaningful interaction.
Yeah.
I've got some other examples, but I'll let you chime in on how Perplexity takes search to a whole new level because of what it assembles in terms of the synchronicity.
Yeah. There's an old cliche, and I should find the source of this, but I don't have it off the top of my head. And the cliche is, a problem well defined is a problem half solved. So
hey, that is, by the way, I love that. I think that's maybe derived out of Kydland's law.
Okay.
Kydland's law is, if you take a problem, get it out of your head and write it down, it's half solved.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love it.
The problem well defined is the problem half solved. You're using these tools to get advanced intelligence to find alignment to scope the situation, right? So you can go in and spend more time actively listening and figuring out, okay, where is their alignment? And I've loved for many years, that the line that you use that says, don't worry about being interesting, be interested, right? It's the same with CPAs, attorneys, strategic partners, with prospects, with clients, right? Don't waste your energy selling yourself and trying to be interesting and morphing. That's why when you have the messaging tight, you have great content. We could talk about AI as a content generation tool, right? With that content, you create the right predisposition. In this day and age, they're gonna know about you. They have that ability. Now, whether they take advantage of that or not, that's up to them. But get interested in clients. And if we can use the tools to walk into engagements in any form, better equipped, right? It liberates us to get more creative, better active listening, get more interested. And I know from personal experience in my conversations with you, my conversations with my wife, my good friends, hey, when somebody express interest in what's going on in my world, that's attractive. That's somebody you want to be around. If it's somebody that just is always talking about them and their accomplishments and what's on their plate, and they're not actively engaging with you, that's, you know what? I don't leave that conversation with my cup being filled. I leave that conversation maybe not necessarily empty or drained, but it's like, that didn't really add any energy or spark to what we have going. The tools are fantastic.
Back to the whole concept of resonance, that dynamic of what it made me think, what I heard, and how it made me feel. The way someone feels about something has a lot to do with their ability to express what's going on in their life.
Yeah.
And I keep saying, I wish I had $1 for every time I've said to an advisor, you're not marketing to yourself. Don't just work on shaping your perception of what you do. Focus on what your value does, but see it through the lens of the client, through the lens of the prospective client. And I'll tell you, this is another scenario. Financial advisor gets an introduction from a great client. Client calls up advocate and says, hey, you got to talk to my friend. He's a little overwhelmed right now. He's getting ready to sell his business. I think it was for $41 million or some incredible number. Again, he's overwhelmed. He thinks his current advisor's in way over his head. He's getting chirped at by all kinds of different other service providers. I explained your process. He wants to talk to you. Just do me a favor, talk to him. So the advisor calls me up and goes, wow. And I'm going, start digging right now. And I told him, I said, go on to ChatGPT and see it through this person's lens. Just type in, I'm a high net worth investor, first generation business owner, getting ready to sell my business for $41 million or whatever it was. I'm about to meet a financial advisor for the first time. I want to determine if there's a good fit. What questions should I ask? And wait 3 seconds.
Yeah.
And the ability for a financial advisor to get inside the head and the inside voice of a prospective client to understand what problems they have, what they want, what they're striving for in terms of solutions, understanding trajectory, unmet needs, the ability to shape an agenda specifically for that person. And the questions, Kevin, talking about obviously technical ability, credentials, why did you choose the firm you're with? How many clients do you have? What is your view on alternative investments? And on it went. The advisor was dumbfounded by how it helped put him in the red zone, and very successful outcome from that, by the way. But I'd love your thought on the concept of predisposition using AI.
The goal is, the end game is to have an army of advocates as clients, which is internal or endemic, which is the most consistently observed growth formula that we see for successful teams, setting aside scalable growth, practice acquisition. If you want to amplify that, you control the message with your clients, but that doesn't necessarily create opportunities for inbound marketing strategies. And when I say inbound marketing strategies, those are attraction-based strategies. So attraction-based strategies would be referrals and introductions, strategic alliances, etc. But it's also tools like LinkedIn. It's what ends up on your website. It would be a podcast. It would be anything that you've constructed that clients are finding, or prospects are finding. Most advisors, because of capacity constraints, don't have great content streams to position them as an authority in their respective space. So when prospects are checking them out, they're getting standardized canned websites. My favorite is the website that says, we have a unique and proprietary process. We listen to our clients, we put a plan together, we implement a plan, and we monitor it over time. And they claim that's proprietary. That's what everybody does. So the ability to create white papers, blog posts, video, make it accessible, right? AI exists to do all of that. ChatGPT as an author, Perplexity, Claude, Jasper, right? There's all these tools that can help you write content, gets you into the red zone, then you refine it, you modify it, you add personal examples, you get it through compliance, and now you start to build a library of blog posts, articles, white papers, podcasts, etc., so that the prospects who do find you, right, what they're experiencing is speaking to their pain points. Right? Ultimately, you're going to try to find the pain point, solve the pain point, get them leaning your way, activating interest, so that they are predisposed. Right? There's another little fun thing that I've discovered that you can do to pull this all together. You have great clients. They know you. They know what you're capable of. They're getting good information from you. And then you have these other marketing capabilities. We have teams now that are saying to their clients, hey, Bill and Sue, when you read a content piece, when you read the blog, when you see our update, or you see a virtual event that's interesting to you, when you tune into that and it causes you to think of somebody else that would benefit from it, who's important to you, please don't hesitate to share it with them. We want to be helping as many people as we can with everything that's going on. So I call that broadcasting beyond. It's not a great name, but this content that has traditionally been designed to serve clients, keep them informed, keep them educated, we're going to get that beyond the existing client base with just a very subtle nudge. But the nudge is worded very specifically. And I know you're a student of language, and you want to have diction and conversations that resonate. The phraseology is, hey, Bill and Sue, when you read the content. It's not if, right? It's when you tune in, we're setting the expectation. If I use the word if, we're immediately devaluing the content. You're saying, hey, by chance, if you pay attention to this, no, Bill and Sue, when you read this content, and it's not if it causes you to think of others, It's when you read this and it causes you to think of others, please don't hesitate to share it with them. So now you've got your content articulating solution of pain points, unique insights. It's written with the tone of your team, amplifies your process, your value, etc. Now it's going to others on behalf of your clients. When they get that content, there's usually three things that occur. First one is they understand the context. Oh, I know why my neighbor sent this to me. For example, we were just having a conversation about Silicon Valley Bank, and they've sent something from their advisor over to the neighbor that is a nice one-piece write-up on why you need not be concerned with the implosion of Silicon Valley Bank. So they understand the context with which they are receiving it. Second, it's great information, so they appreciate that they're now informed on this particular topic. And then the third thought is a little bit more interesting, because the third thought is, why didn't I get this from my advisor? I know how much I'm paying them in fees. I see those coming out every quarter, every month. Why am I not getting this level of experience from my advisor? So you can use AI to amplify the speed at which you create that content library. Planning topics, market updates. Yeah, jump in. Go.
You just did a master class. You did a master class on being referable through stewardship, triggering a moment of recognition for the concept of advocacy, but respectfully, not asking for a referral. Content is such a powerful bridge. And all you have to do, like you said, is nudge and just simply say, when, and like the language, the words matter, like you perfect. And the client saying, yes, I'm going to send this to my brother. Yes, I'm going to send this to my business partner because the content is valuable. It's permission marketing, but incredibly high road. That's very well done. And again, just the whole concept of intent to consent, you're basically giving them permission because they said, oh yeah, I would have never thought of that to send this to somebody, but it's that good. And of course, like you said, creating a moment of recognition for the inferiority of my current advisor because of the quality of this content. And then the trust I have for the advocate who made the introduction, that just might tip me over.
Yeah. And you never said anything about the quality of their current service provider. You are completely above board.
It's just self-evident that this is not somebody talking about a product.
Yeah.
This is somebody making a very astute observation and helping me. It's very powerful.
So I want to use a parallel analogy that virtually everybody will be able to intake. When you buy an Apple product, their view is that product purchase starts, right, with the packaging. Right? When you unpack an Apple product, it's very different than other products. The packaging is beautiful, but yet intuitive in terms of how you access it. And it presents itself in such a way, and you keep getting more, and it's interesting, and it all comes together. Okay? That's very intentional. That's what we're talking about with your business, right? How do you present it? How do you package it in a way so that it's not just another brown cardboard box that shows up via Amazon with the black Amazon packaging tape? You rip it open, some of the plastic air cushioning comes out, and then you've got a very basic package. Right? We're talking about a business that operates and has a level of attention to detail and specificity to say, you know what, everything we do, we want it to be that kind of that Apple packaging experience. So a strategy meeting happens in a way to where the client their posture is, they're relaxed, they're engaged, it's conversational. They know that it's tailored to what they need. They know that there's follow-up emails and action on the back end. And it's not a stressful experience because they know, hey, we've gone through the process. We're on track. We've empowered this team to work on our behalf. We're just catching up and telling them what's new and interesting in our lives. And they're going to make sure that strategies that are in place are in alignment with our goals and our values and what we want to accomplish.
And to do that at scale, like making the client experience part of the product deliverable is incredibly powerful. Okay, I just for the sake of time, I want to shift So you talk about process. We spend a lot of time working with advisors in the spirit of professional contrast to differentiate by not just having clients connect with the people and the practice, but also with the process, like making the process an actual thing that I can connect with and identify with. It's actually got personality. And so there's an exercise that we go through with teams, but I want to bring it back to AI. I'm sure, Kevin, you've got a nice family, kids, and there were probably a couple of Lego purchases over the years.
Many an injury, a painful step onto a Lego in the night when you're creeping into a little one's bedroom because they're crying or whatnot. Yeah, we've been there. We've been there.
I love it. Okay, it's funny because both my kids they're actual people out in the world now as functioning adults, and we still have buckets of Lego in our storage room. But the difference is now it's just buckets of random pieces of Lego. It's not like the original boxes. Now, it's interesting. The Eiffel Tower, the small version of the Eiffel Tower, has 321 pieces in that box with directions for how to build it. And it's very valuable in that form. Not very valuable in the bucket because it's just, again, random. I can now take that bucket of Lego, pour it on the ground, take a picture, upload that. AI will highlight the pieces in that pile to help me build the Eiffel Tower. Now it's valuable again. You cannot build a puzzle without the picture. So what's the analogy? How many puzzle pieces do you as a financial professional put together for a client and their family over the lifetime of the relationship, especially as it goes up and down the family tree? If you're going to tell the world you have a process, it helps actually have one. This is what I'd like you to do, and I'd love your comments on this, Kevin. We ask advisors to do your inventory and know your number. If you're going to tell everybody that you interact with that we have a process in place that puts all the pieces of the financial puzzle together for our clients so they always have the complete picture, how many pieces are there? For an average advisor, it's 85 pieces. Some are more, some are less. Know your number, do your inventory, organize it, standardize it, like literally sit down with your team and mind map this. Back to Kitlin's Law, you mind map this, you're halfway there. You're heading toward the red zone. You want to get further down the track? Just go into ChatGPT and say, I'm a financial professional. I work primarily with successful business owners, professionals, and executives. How many pieces of the financial puzzle could I put together over the lifetime of the relationship so my clients always have the complete picture? And just watch what comes out. It's incredible. Okay. As a prompt, it will prompt you and your team to actually organize and professionalize and standardize your process, putting it into the various pillars, because you don't want your clients to buy into the individual pieces. You want them to buy into the process, the thing that you have in place that's fluid and dynamic, panoramic, and all-encompassing. Yeah. It's a phenomenal exercise.
Yeah. And we've been doing that exercise for years. So you've sat down with teams, and it used to be done with 3x5 cards. And then it was done with sticky notes or flip charts on the wall. And you said, hey, everybody come prepared with a list of either tasks that you do or deliverables. And you're putting these sticky notes on the wall and you're moving around and you're discussing it. When we say AI gets you to the red zone, right, it puts that together for you. You get into the red zone, you have a starting point, and now you sit down as a team and you say, okay, what are we missing? What do we need to tweak? And if you want to take it to the next level, you then use that as an input to developing your functional organizational chart, which is a traditional org chart, but then underneath it, everybody has listed their 7 to 10 primary responsibilities. Then you start having the conversation to say, okay, where are the gaps in executing on these processes? Do we have overlaps? CSA, support person, is getting set to retire in a year or depart, move away. Hey, look what we have to accelerate the ramp up of the replacement. Define roles, processes, procedures. This all goes back to the core of your first book, because I can see it sitting there on the table, right? The advisor playbook about building a franchise-ready business. The success rate of franchises crushes the traditional rate of startups. Why? Process, there's procedure. You just need the bodies to come in and execute.
That brings up a very important point about maverick talent and the HR dynamic. I want to touch on that in a moment, but I want to come back to the fluid and dynamic nature of relationship management, because undoubtedly everybody listening in uses a CRM, and the best place to strengthen a relationship, to convert a customer to a client and a client to a loyal, fully empowering, referral generating advocate, the best place to manage or strengthen that relationship is where you manage it. Now, you mentioned Zox and Jump AI as sidecar that has perfect recall and that bedside manner. If you want to scale up and fill that jar a little bit further, these are, in my view, indispensable, non-optional tools to manage relationships and strengthen those relationships. So a quick point on that, and then we'll jump to HR.
Yeah, those are two good examples. Other examples, if you want to talk about prospect pipeline, there's a tool out there called Catchlight, which you can upload a list of prospect names and it will go and scrape and gather data and help you create a persona for those individuals. And then based upon what you do, it will rank those in terms of probability of conversion. So there's some predictive modeling there. There's another great tool called Refer Me IQ, which I love the concept, but I would coach everybody to tweak it. It's a tool that will drive out automated referral requests, but I know how you feel about referrals, Duncan. So the way I'm using the tool is I'm telling people, use the chassis, but substitute sounding board. Use the chassis, substitute other value add in the language in the emails, because we're not asking for referrals. We don't want you to do the inventory of people that report to you. We don't even know if they have money, if they'd be interested. So we're going to use that chassis, but we're going to flip it over to the sounding board as a way of delivering more value. Right?
So it's not chasing. It's not looking needy.
It's not chasing. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, perfect. Hey, Kevin, I want to wrap up. There's so much more we could cover here, but HR is such a big deal on so many levels, and AI plays a role in this. Another of the immutable laws that affects a fee-for-service professional as they are building out their team is Gilbert's Law. And Gilbert's Law is basically the issue of dilution and a business starting to show cracks as it grows because people are left to their own devices. There's an absence of clear communication. And the biggest problem is that somebody gets brought on board, they get told what to do, high level, but not really shown what to do in the form of process. In other words, they're hiring to maverick talent and then just figure it out, good luck. And that's not going to work anymore. So let's talk about some HR dynamics, team formation, accountability, organization, and structure using AI. The first thing I'll just remember coming back to, every financial advisory business should have two distinct procedures: a client-facing process that helps them understand and appreciate the process, not just now, but where it's going. Also, the way of the business. This is our standard operating procedure. This is our process that ensures consistency in the client experience. AI can help you build both. The key with AI is create an org chart of roles and responsibilities, and then just ask it for procedures around the fit process, the onboarding process, the service model, and the goals-based client experience. Just ask it for some direction and a framework on that. And I will say, and I've seen it happen, a financial services business can have 80% of their way completed in the next 90 days using this methodical sequential approach and using AI, especially, Kevin, around the rule of three. So can I get you to chime in on that?
So the tools that come to mind as you described that, ChatGPT, great for grabbing process documentation for a various process. If you need to overhaul your strategy meeting process, go out to ChatGPT, ask it to collect examples of different processes on and the steps in that deliverable. That's the one that I spend most of my time using is ChatGPT. Some people prefer Copilot. Some people prefer Claude. It's a preference thing. In terms of level of execution and accountability, I haven't seen an AI tool and I haven't asked ChatGPT yet, but this will be something I do this afternoon. I think of when you were describing what you were going through in terms of hiring talent, but then left to their own devices. I think of books like Traction or systems like the Entrepreneurial Operating System, right? I haven't looked to see if there's an AI tool that builds that structure, but I'm a huge fan of every team member producing a monthly status report, right? At the end of every month, every team member, regardless of role, produces a monthly status report. The status report has two components to it, right? First is, how are you tracking on your goals, right? Where should you be? Where are you? What's the delta or the difference? And then we're going to have a conversation about, hey, either great, we're exceeding performance or we're stuck, we're underperforming. And in addition to the goal tracking, you give us red, yellow, green, right? Red are critical problems you need help with, things that are preventing you from achieving your goals. Yellow are the things that are, if we don't address them, they're going to become red, limiting factors. And the green is for the places where you are having success. If you are an advisor who's struggling with HR and people and management, just have your team give you status reports. They will take more ownership of their role. You will get a window into their world. You'll better understand what they're faced with on a daily basis. And it creates a feedback mechanism so that it's not random and haphazard. The worst thing you can do for your employees is drive-bys. Like you don't show up, there's no coaching, and then boom, you show up and you just light them up. Nobody wants to work in that environment. Instead, take ownership of it, build the process, build the system, and create status reporting. If you manage your internal team and you have somebody else that you report to, you aggregate those and you roll it up, right? All things that fall into the category of working on the business. I've yet to see an AI tool that has that built in, but I now have a task to go find one because I'm certain it's out there.
At a minimum, it can be cobbled together using ChatGPT. Sure. But here's the framework and the progression around the rule of three. First of all, if you're going to add to your bench, the first rule of three is whatever mechanism you're filling your pipeline with talent, you might do group interviews, you might do one-to-ones, however you're sourcing them through LinkedIn, Indeed, whatever the case may be, Robert Half or an HR headhunter, whatever the case may be. When it comes down towards the end of the pipeline, the rule of three is interview this person 3 times, 3 different people on your team in 3 different settings, including a external setting like a restaurant, and see how they interact with people, all of that, how to get their buy-in to process, understand their aspirations. If you want somebody to buy into your dream, you got to buy into theirs. Be very methodical based on that form of the rule of three. The next rule of three is, if you're going to buy into Tuckman's model, forming, storming, norming, and performing, and you talk about, that's basically a supplement to what you just said, Kevin. Mm-hmm. The rule of three is anything you do 3 or more times, it has 3 or more steps, must be documented digitally, physically, and represented verbally. Okay. In other words, nobody's telling the world that you help people achieve their financial goals. You're saying we have a process that helps our clients achieve their financial goals. However many messengers, one message, all process driven. Okay. Rule of three. Now, a big sort of overlooked element of Tuckman's model, beyond forming, storming, norming, and performing, is also adjourning.
Yeah.
As you're building out your team, what are you going to let go of?
Yeah.
there are certain people that are not a good fit in terms of clients, activities, whatever the case may be. You've got to go through that exercise. And then, Kevin, the last rule of 3 is just understand directionally where this is going. If you're trying to scale up and build out your team, your capacity without diluting the client experience, you have 3 primary objectives. And I really want your feedback on this because this is your wheelhouse. Number 1, exceed compliance. Exceed it. And not just for what it gets you, but for what it makes of you as a team to achieve professional contracts. Number 1. Number 2, just understand this notion of capacity release. As you get more efficient, it's like the jar. You're finding capacity. And then thirdly, your ability to scale up. That's the 3 progressions of professionalizing and standardizing your business. So I said a lot there, Kevin, but I'd love your feedback and you can close us out here based on that.
So I have those written down, right? If we go through exceed from a compliance perspective, what is compliance? It's a set of rules and processes that you must follow. And when we say compliance, people immediately think externally compliance rules that we're going to follow. But I would say exceed the compliance and abide by your own process. Maintain the level of discipline to remain compliant with the processes that you are developing to adhere to a standard of excellence.
Okay, sorry to interrupt you, but I know you've got a very powerful phrase here regarding integrity. I want you to say this. It's so strong.
Yeah. So integrity is defined as, what do you do when no one's looking? Like that's the layman's term. The phrase that I love is non-negotiable integrity. Like it's not even a question. And I picked that up. It was a core value of one of the firms that I used to work at. I use it all the time. But exceeding compliance, having non-negotiable integrity to adhere not just to regulator standards, but our own standard of excellence raises the level of execution. You talk about releasing capacity. Jim Collins, great strategy writer. He will say the stop doing list is more important than the to-do list. Because if you don't free up capacity, you don't have any bandwidth to go do new and interesting things. And then the scale up, we've been having advisors come to us all the time saying, hey, I want to buy another practice. The phrase that I picked up there is, hey, you don't go buy anybody, you don't tuck in anybody unless your business is ready to be sold. Right? Because otherwise you have your own quote unquote mess on your hands and you're going to be purchasing other businesses that have their own degree of complexity and mess, right? Hey, let's get your thing dialed in, organized to where we could say, hey, this thing could be sold. New owner could come in, processes run, clients aren't going anywhere. They're connected to the team, et cetera. Before you tuck in and acquire and try to create scale, get your business ready to be sold. And what it turns out, and you'll love this because I'm going to bring it full circle, that value proposition to the client in that scenario is the same value proposition to the advisor who's tucking in, right? We've got a team. We've got a process. This is what it does for our clients. Mr. and Mrs. Advisor, tuck in with us, join us. Why? Because we've built this team. We've got a process and you and your clients become the beneficiaries of what we've created. It's a unified message, right? We remove ambiguity. So Duncan, we could do another 2 hours of this, right? We don't have time in our calendars to do that. The audience doesn't have the appetite to do it. I will just tell you, the more that I think about AI and the more I think about scalable businesses, it's very clear where the puck is going, right? Wayne Gretzky, his attitude was, I was a good player when I skated to where the puck was. I became a great player when I listened to my dad, because he told me, don't go to where the puck is, skate to where the puck is going. So I think it's great that we start with some hockey talk. We bring it full circle back to classic, iconic hockey relevance with a great one and some really good advice about getting your business organized and skating to where the puck is going in our industry.
Got a tear in my eye.
Hey? Yeah.
Hey, I love the paradox. It's the entrepreneurial paradox is you're truly on the verge of greatness the day you've made yourself obsolete.
Yeah.
And then the supplement to that is you're ready to be scalable and franchise ready the day your business is ready to be acquired itself.
Yep.
That's
Yep.
profound. Very well done. Kevin, where can people find you?
You can find me on LinkedIn. Will self-admit I'm not the greatest at keeping tabs on LinkedIn. You can go to our firm's website, ftportfolios.com. We've got a best practices page out there. You can get to me through your local First Trust wholesaler relationship. And it's not just me. I don't want to misrepresent what we do at First Trust. We have a team of 7 consultants who are focused in various disciplines. When it comes to practice management, what you get at First Trust is you get our team, experienced, specialized. You get our process. We study success. We build processes and tools so that the solutions that we bring to you, and whether that's our strategic relationship with Pareto, other content that we produce, it's all leans and bends toward taking action and executing because we know that's where the payoff takes place.
Got one last question for you, but I'll just remind everybody that we'll get to work right away on a top 10 list of just a one-pager of the top 10 things that we talked about today and why they're relevant. And you can apply your own discernment and decide if there's merit within your business. But here's the last question. Are you aware as to why Canadians are called hosers?
I think I am. Can I give my answer and you fact check me?
Yeah, in real time.
I believe that in the pond hockey world, the loser of the game has to hose down the ice so that it's a fresh, smooth sheet for the next game. And so if you lose the game, you were designated the hoser. Am I correct?
You are correct. The only thing I would add to that is pre-hosing, you had to scrape the ice. You had to scrape the snow off. And then, yes. And I've actually been on a frozen body of water and had to drill into the ice to pump the water out of the lake to flood the pond. It's actually a surreal, sublime experience. But yes, you are correct. Very impressive.
Well, I feel like that gets me one step closer to being an honorary Canadian.
Yes,
which
absolutely.
would be fantastic. Hey, thanks, Duncan. It's great to see you again. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in.
Appreciate it, Kevin.
Thank you for listening to Always On with Duncan MacPherson, where our objective is to enable professionals to always be working on their business and on themselves. Want to learn more about Duncan and his team? Visit ParetoSystems.com. Don't forget to click the follow button below to be notified when new episodes become available. The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the hosts and/or guests and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of Pareto Systems. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only.